You ever hear the phrase, your best is never enough? Do you ever get annoyed by your boss saying, I want results, and then having them check on you every 5 seconds to make sure it's done? Folks, if you want good leadership, it has to begin with you. I'm not always saying you'll have the perfect boss or the ideal workplace environment, but what I'm saying is you can't step up to the plate. The examples I gave were examples of just managing your people. There is a difference between being an effective leader and a manager. Anyone can manage. Let's face it, we all have to manage our time, our money, our resources, whether at home or on the job. Management classes are given quite frequently for just this reason. I am in the Air Force. I would know. A non-commissioned officer, according to the Professional Development Guide, which we use to test for higher rank, is a first-line supervisor. In effect, part of management. According to Warren Bennis, used as a source in the Professional Development Guide, a manager is someone who is administrative and in control. They are strictly interested in results and numbers. But the numbers game does not take into account the people involved. This is where a leader comes in. General George Patton, commander of the Allied forces in World War II in North Africa, said this: "If you tell people where to go, but not how to get there, you will be amazed at the results." How many times have you been told by management to get things done, then shown their way, but as soon as left to your own devices, you get things done more efficiently? I'm sure many of you have had this experience. I myself have had it quite often. As a military cop, I'm always in search of that happy medium. It's very difficult, though, when you have 1,000 different people telling you 1,000 different ways. A few ways shown by the right person can go a long way. If you do it a certain way, a leader will tell you, well, that's good, but how about this? And he will communicate this effectively. A rule of thumb as a good leader: feedback and communication. Make sure your people know that they're heard. A little positive motivation can go a long way as well. If your people know that you're willing to go to bat for them, that trust can make them do things for you that they normally wouldn't. If you're interested in just strictly numbers and tell your people, do this, do that, oh, that's wrong, that's terrible, that negative correction and feedback will only go so far, believe you me. On top of that, I'm sure a lot of us have had the experience of people taking credit for your good idea. An effective leader will make sure that the credit is given where credit is due. And that will inspire your people to want to work more for you because they see that they can trust you. Trust is something that is not so easily given. But once it is given, it can go a long way. As a manager, you can walk in and make sure it is being done your way, on time, with the right amount of tools given. But that may not always get the results that you want, or want to give for that matter. You can be a decent manager, as I've said before. But if all you're interested in is numbers, that will only get you so far. I'll give an example of this. The movie We Were Soldiers, based off of the book of the same title, written by Lieutenant General Harold Moore retired, shows an excellent example of this. During the Vietnam conflict, the early days in 1962, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore was responsible for the officers underneath him. They trained for several months before deploying, but right as he was about to deploy into the Ia Drang Valley, which was the subject of the book, his officers were replaced by a fresh new crop of West Point graduates. He was a little frustrated at this fact, but people knew it was coming due to the fact that Secretary of Defense at the time, Robert McNamara, was known to be a notorious number cruncher. Hal Moore was still able to pull out a victory, but at a high cost. Could he have done it with the officers he had trained? Sure. Will we ever know? No, because they weren't there at that battle. However, it was due to his leadership on the battlefield. He wanted to make sure that his officers knew their people and that he knew his officers. Everyone knew Robert McNamara was a strict manager. This also altered the Vietnam conflict greatly later. You cannot do anything strictly by numbers without taking into account the people underneath them. This is the comparison that I was referring to earlier. Manager is strictly numbers. A leader knows his numbers, but he also knows that the numbers are individuals. Just remember, folks, we are all capable of being managers. We learn arithmetic very early on in our lives and how to crunch numbers. But when we take into account our people, that is where effective leadership starts. Make sure you take care of your people. They're the ones who ultimately give you your end product. Also remember this, General Patton said it best. When you give your best, what else is there? Remember, folks, you have to give your best, and that will impact others to want them to give you their best.